They reached the plateau at dusk, the final stretch of their ascent winding through jagged rocks and frostbitten silence. The mountain loomed around them, its peak obscured by thick cloud cover that glowed faintly in the fading sunlight. Alyssa crouched at the edge of a cliff, scanning the enemy compound nestled in the valley below, an angular sprawl of black alloy and heat vents, humming with barely suppressed violence. Through the magnified scope of her rifle, she counted the patrols. For on the outer perimeter, 2 drones orbiting in lazy ellipses above, and 1 sniper nest perched in a high tower, an echo of her own vantage point. The Zarnai weren't taking chances anymore. Bren knelt beside her, wrapped in thermal mesh, eyes following her line of sight. He'd changed since that first encounter. He moved quieter now, spoke less, watched more. War had stripped away whatever arrogance he carried. Or maybe it had simply been burned out of him by the fire they'd walked through together. "There," Alyssa murmured, tapping her finger lightly against the screen on her pad. That heat signature in the central structure, too steady for machinery. Bren leaned closer. Command node. Maybe someone important. He hesitated before speaking again. "You really think taking out one more officer will do anything? They'll just replace him." "It's not about him," she replied. "It's about the message. That no matter how deep they dig, I'll find them." Bren studied her for a moment. "And after this one?" She didn't answer immediately. She let the silence stretch out between them, filled with the whistling wind and distant rumble of engines. Her hands were steady on the rifle, her breath measured. For a long time, the mission had been the only thing anchoring her. But something in her had begun to shift. Maybe it was the way Bren watched her back without being told. Maybe it was the way the stars no longer looked cold when she lay beneath them, listening to him talk quietly about places he'd been. She wasn't sure. "After this," she said softly, "I disappear again." "Disappear where?" "Somewhere they won't look." He nodded, but the weight of his gaze lingered. Below them, floodlights powered on, casting long shadows over the terrain. Alyssa adjusted her rifle and sighted the sniper tower. The sentry leaned lazily against the railing, clearly not expecting company. One breath in, one breath out. The shot cracked like thunder, even through the silencer. The sentry dropped before the sound reached his ears. A beat passed, no alarms, no scrambling troops. Perfect. They slid down the ridge together, low and fast, moving from cover to cover like phantoms. Alyssa took the lead, her boots finding paths where none existed, her senses sharpened to a razor's edge. They bypassed the first patrol entirely, ducking into a drainage tunnel that fed into the compound's lower levels. Inside, the facility buzzed with subdued energy, too calm, too efficient. Alyssa didn't like it. She motioned for Bren to hold position while she scouted ahead. The corridors were narrow, steel walls lined with conduits and surveillance panels. She slipped past 2 technicians with ease, hugging shadows, avoiding the security cams that swept methodically from side to side. When she returned, her expression was grim. "They're baiting us," she said. "The heat signature's a decoy. They knew I'd come." Bren blinked. "So it's a trap?" Alyssa nodded. "But I'm not leaving empty-handed." She handed him a small device, flat, circular, blinking with a slow pulse. "Data shard," she explained. "From their comms hub. It logs officer locations, orders, drone routes. Everything." I pulled it before the systems could flag me. He stared at it, then at her. "You're going to stay. I can slow them down. Draw them out. But you." "No," he said firmly. "I'm not leaving without you." Her eyes softened for a moment. "Bren, we didn't come all this way for you to vanish in a blaze of martyrdom. If we run now, with that shard, we can hurt them worse. Not just fear, disruption, disarray." For the first time, she saw not just fire in his eyes, but direction, purpose. "I'll cover you," she said. "Exit route through the North Ridge. Meet me at the glade. You better be there." Their hands met briefly, just a brush of fingers, and then they parted. Alyssa moved like a whisper through the facility, tripping false alarms, hacking doors, causing enough chaos to mask Bren's escape. The compound erupted in a frenzy, guards scrambling, systems blinking red, confusion layered on confusion. She left signs everywhere, taunting ones. Let them know she was still alive. And then she vanished into the smoke. Hours passed before she made it to the glade. Her shoulder bled from a near miss, and her breath came ragged and sharp, but she made it. Bren was there, hunched by a fire, clutching the shard like a lifeline. He looked up and saw her. Relief flooded his face. "Told you," she rasped. "I don't die easy." He stood, catching her as she staggered. "You're late." She smiled weakly, took the scenic route. As they huddled in the faint warmth of the fire, the weight of what they'd done settled over them. Not an ending, not a victory, but a shift. A bruise against a tyrant, a heartbeat in the dark, and somewhere in the belly of a war machine that believed itself untouchable, panic had begun to bloom. They didn't sleep that night. They planned. They whispered of networks, of allies, of places where resistance still sparked. Alyssa watched the stars overhead, those same cold stars, and for once didn't feel alone beneath them. The storm rolled in with a low, guttural rumble that seemed to echo through Alyssa's bones. Rain hadn't yet begun, but the air was thick with its promise, damp and heavy. She crouched beside a smoldering fire in the hollow of a long-abandoned relay station, its steel walls warped and overgrown with vines. Her captive, whose name she had finally coaxed from him, Bren, sat with his back to a rusted girder, rubbing at his wrists, no longer bound but still under watchful eyes. He wasn't stupid. That much she had realized quickly. Arrogant, sure. Opportunistic. But not dumb. He knew better than to try running now. "Didn't think you'd let me live this long," Bren muttered, breaking the long silence. Alyssa didn't look at him. She was examining the tablet she'd taken from his pack, decrypting the logs. A familiar symbol flickered across the screen, the sigil of the Zarnai High Intelligence Corps. She'd suspected they were behind the bounty, but seeing it confirmed was another matter. Her jaw tightened. "They don't like leaving things unfinished," she said. "That includes me." Bren scoffed. "You killed a dozen of their field officers. Rumor is you took out an entire command convoy near Dranik Spire." "Rumors always leave out the part where they slaughtered civilians," she replied coldly. "I just settled the math." He didn't speak after that. The wind picked up, stirring the leaves outside and howling faintly through the gaps in the metal. Alyssa's mind wandered to her team, what remained of them, anyway. The ambush near Nara's drop had cost them everything. She had escaped by crawling through mud and blood, watching her friends torn apart by plasma fire. They'd laughed then, the Zarnai. Laughed through the comms as they played recordings of their kills. Alyssa had listened to her sergeant scream until his mic went silent. And so, she disappeared into the wilderness. One shot at a time, she erased names from the roster of those who laughed. Bren shifted, drawing her attention. "You really think you can win?" "I'm not trying to win. I'm trying to make them bleed." He shook his head. "You're one person. Even ghosts get hunted eventually. Let them come." Outside, the sky cracked open, and the rain finally came, first in soft spatters, then a steady drumming against the metal roof. Alyssa stood, scanning the edge of the forest through the broken wall of the station. She saw movement, brief, controlled. "They found us," she said flatly. Bren's head jerked up. "How?" "They probably pinged your wristband before I got to it." He paled, rising to his feet. "So what now? We fight." "No," Alyssa said, already strapping her rifle across her back. "We vanish." But it was already too late. A beam of searing blue light carved a hole through the wall behind them, narrowly missing Bren's shoulder. The hiss of melted steel filled the air, and then came the shouts, Zarnai voices, harsh and clipped, too close for comfort. Alyssa grabbed her pack and shoved Bren toward the back exit. "Go." Through the ravine. They sprinted down a narrow slope choked with roots and slick with moss. Plasma bolts tore through the trees above them, turning branches to ash. Alyssa fired blindly over her shoulder, buying time. She didn't need to hit. She just needed them to hesitate. They reached the river. Swollen by the storm, it raged below, frothing over jagged rocks. Bren hesitated. "Jump," Alyssa ordered. "You're insane." then jump insane. She leapt first, disappearing into the torrent. Bren followed a heartbeat later, arms flailing. The water swallowed them both, cold and violent. It tumbled them like leaves caught in a drain, smashing them against stones, dragging them beneath. When she surfaced, gasping, she caught sight of Bren clinging to a branch near the opposite shore. She swam hard, muscles burning, until she reached him, pulling him to the bank. Both of them collapsed there, soaked and breathless. It wasn't safety, but it wasn't death. Not yet. Minutes passed. The forest was quiet again, save for the relentless hiss of rain. "Why are you helping me?" Bren asked, shivering. "You know things," Alyssa said simply. "They'll come after you now, too. Congratulations, you're inconvenient." He gave a weak laugh. "So now I'm part of your crusade." "You're a liability," she said, not unkindly. "But also maybe something else." The truth was, she had watched him in those moments, under fire, panicked, but not paralyzed. He hadn't tried to use her as a shield or sell her out. He ran when she said run. That counted for something. She handed him a protein wafer. He took it wordlessly. As they sat in the drizzle, Alyssa checked her rifle. The scope was fogged, the barrel packed with silt. She'd need to clean it. But it wasn't broken. Neither was she. Bren broke the silence again. "I heard what you said back there about making them bleed. You really think enough blood will make them stop?" "No," she said. "But it'll make them look over their shoulder." He nodded slowly, staring out at the mist-drenched forest. "So what's next?" Alyssa's eyes narrowed. The tracker signal on the tablet pulsed again. Another officer, another location. This one deeper into the mountains. "High value. They won't stop until they kill me," she said. "So I'll make every attempt cost them." "And me?" "You're along for the ride," she said. "Unless you want to walk." Bren didn't answer. He just stood up, shivering and soaked, but nodding. Alyssa led the way into the woods, each step a promise. The trees closed behind them like a curtain, and the storm swallowed their tracks. The morning sun filtered weakly through the canopy, pale and distant, its light diffused by the mist that clung stubbornly to the forest. Alyssa adjusted her position atop a moss-covered ledge. Her rifle nestled into the crook of her shoulder like a living thing. She could hear the soft chatter of insects, the far-off rumble of a Zarnai transport skimming along the valley floor. It sounded like a growl in the distance, mechanical and predatory. She had spent 3 days threading through the jungle, weaving between sensor nets and skirting the reach of scout drones. Every movement was calculated, deliberate. She lived in the rhythms of silence now, step, breath, pause. She knew which patches of moss gave under pressure and which cracked like old paper. The forest was not her enemy. The Zarnai were. Her next target was less symbolic than strategic, a logistics coordinator named Varquell. He wasn't a frontline warrior or a decorated officer, but he was clever, too clever to underestimate. Under his oversight, the Zarnai had transformed their forward outposts into efficient killboxes. He restructured their comms protocols and pioneered the jamming systems that had disoriented her team before the ambush. Removing him would sow confusion. That confusion would spread. Through her scope, Alyssa spotted him. He was smaller than the others, draped in a silvery robe that shimmered in the dim light, standing near a relay console beneath a makeshift tent. He gestured sharply at 2 guards, his posture clipped and impatient. His helmet sat discarded on a crate beside him, a rare moment of vulnerability. Alyssa exhaled, a sharp click of the safety disengaging. Her heart did not race. Her hands didn't tremble. Then the shot came, but not hers. A plasma bolt sizzled past her, carving a scar into the bark 2 inches from her head. She rolled instinctively, the world narrowing to instinct and motion, tumbling down the incline as another blast scorched the ledge where she had lain moments ago. The smell of burning moss hit her hard. Someone had tracked her. Somehow. She crashed into the underbrush below, rifle still in hand. She landed hard on her left side, breath knocked from her lungs. Training kicked in. She crawled backward into a thicket of ferns, vanishing beneath their broad leaves. For minutes, there was silence. She heard no pursuit, no voices. But she didn't relax. Alyssa gritted her teeth and checked her side, bruised but unbroken. Her rifle was intact. She pulled a small orb from her belt and thumbed it alive. A holographic readout hovered in the air, projecting thermal readings in a 10-meter radius. There. A heat signature. Slightly elevated. Someone crouching. She squinted through the scrub and saw him. Not a Zarnai, but a human, maybe mid-30s, unshaven, clad in scavenged armor and draped in the mud-stained remnants of a Federation recon cloak. His weapon was a civilian-grade plasma carbine with aftermarket mods, and it was aimed at her last position. Mercenary, she guessed. Or deserter. Either way, he wasn't here by chance. Alyssa activated her comm scrambler and let a small chime ping in his ear, just enough to startle him. He turned. That was all she needed. One silent shot, compressed gas, subsonic round. He dropped without a word, unconscious. Non-lethal. She needed answers. An hour later, she crouched beside him in a narrow gully, binding his hands behind his back with reinforced wire. The man stirred, blinking into consciousness with a grunt. "Who sent you?" she asked, voice low. He smirked, even through the ache. "You really are the ghost," he muttered. "Didn't think you were real." "Talk." "I work freelance. Someone put out a bounty. Big one. No name, just data. You're famous, Creed. The coward sniper. Been on a lot of screens." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "The Zarnai." He shrugged. "Could be. Or someone trying to get in their good graces. Makes no difference to me. Where's your uplink?" He motioned with his chin. "Wristband. You'll need my code to unlock." She didn't wait for him to finish. With a flick of her blade, she disabled the device and stripped the battery. His objections died before they formed. "You're lucky I need you breathing," she said, standing. "Move." He groaned and stumbled to his feet. "Where are we going?" "To make a point." They moved through the trees in silence, save for the occasional command from Alyssa to stop or change direction. She wasn't taking chances. When they reached the bluff above Varquell's camp again, she noted the increased patrols. The missed shot had rattled them. Perfect. She set the man down beneath a camouflage net and positioned herself again. Through her scope, she found the coordinator, still alive, still exposed, shouting orders now. "I hope you're recording this," she told her captive. "Why?" he asked, glancing up nervously. "Because they laughed." She exhaled, and the rifle hummed once. Varquell's head jerked violently, a neat hole blossoming between his eyes. His body crumpled, lifeless. The camp erupted into chaos. Guards shouted, weapons drawn, but the shooter was already a whisper in the wind. Alyssa didn't wait to admire her work. She melted back into the forest, her captive in tow. "Still think snipers are a joke?" she asked him as they moved. He didn't answer. And somewhere beneath the howling wind, that laughter, the one that haunted her memory, had fallen quiet. The mist rolled in over the jagged hills of Viridian, six like a living thing, curling around ancient pines and smothering sound beneath its ghostly weight. A fine drizzle clung to the gnarled trees and the fractured rock outcroppings that jutted skyward like broken bones. Somewhere beyond the fog, laughter echoed, deep, guttural, and cruel. Lieutenant Alyssa Creed didn't flinch. She lay motionless beneath a lattice of moss and mud, her breath even and her heartbeat slow, wrapped in a ghillie suit so finely woven it whispered into the terrain. Through the thermal scope of her rifle, the shapes of the Zarnai patrol flickered like wraiths in the distance. She counted 6. Each bore plasma pikes slung casually over their shoulders, armor plates gleaming faintly beneath iridescent cloaks. They moved like apex predators, confident, loud, unafraid. She remembered that laugh. She'd heard it before, broadcasted over open frequencies during her last mission, right before everything went to hell. 3 weeks earlier, her unit had been deployed to scout an encroaching Zarnai forward base. 12 in total. Skilled, silent, and prepared. None of them expected the ambush. Alyssa still saw flashes of Mason's face, his helmet shattered, his blood soaking into the alien soil. His body was never recovered. None of them were, except her. She survived buried beneath her squadmates' wrecked exosuits, dazed, lungs filled with dirt and silence. The Zarnai made a spectacle of the massacre. They recorded it, added commentary. So this is the pinnacle of Earth's covert forces. One had sneered in fluent interlingua. A pack of trembling soft-skinned meat. The laughter that followed had burrowed into her spine. They called her a coward. Not because she fled, she hadn't, but because she'd lived. After extraction, the brass offered her reassignment. Psychological leave. She refused both. What she asked for instead was impossible on paper and suicidal in practice. A solo infiltration mission back into the same region, now deeper in enemy territory. No backup, no evac window, her commanding officer warned. You'll be alone, Creed, if you're caught. I won't be, she said simply. The debrief room had gone silent. The request was stamped as unauthorized but processed nonetheless. She knew what that meant. If she failed, it wouldn't stain anyone's record but her own. If she succeeded, well, they never planned for that. Now, lying still beneath the veil of twilight mist, her finger resting gently beside the trigger guard, Alyssa watched the patrol fan out. They were too comfortable, too dismissive. In their culture, snipers were an outdated concept, dishonorable, even laughable. Real warriors faced their foes with blades or blasters, never bullets. Stealth was for cowards. So they believed. She'd show them what one coward could do. The patrol passed without incident. She let them go. Patience was her sharpest blade. The real target wasn't grunts. She was after their commanders, their comms officers, their spiritual leaders, the minds that move the war machine. That's how you kill something stronger than you. Not at the muscle, but at the brain. Her sniper rifle, a heavily modified M71X Ghost model, was an extension of her own nervous system. Silenced with recoil dampeners, adaptive targeting AI, and a smart lens overlay, it was illegal in 10 systems. The kind of weapon a ghost would carry. She waited until the fog swallowed the patrol completely, then rose silently, knees stiff from hours of stillness. Her suit shifted colors slightly to match the changing terrain as she descended into the ravine below, boots pressing into moss without a sound. Around her, the forest groaned with alien life, insects clicking like clocks, branches creaking under the weight of thick-bellied birds. Her HUD blinked, signal detected. Faint. Zarnai frequency. She tapped into it, voice only. Still no contact. No signs of the human. She's probably dead, or worse, ran away again. Another voice, more confident, answered, let her crawl in the dirt. She's a symbol now. A lesson. This is how humans die, one by one, hiding forgotten. Alyssa grinned. That night, she reached her first overlook, a crag of stone shaped like a broken tooth, with a clear line of sight to the Zarnai listening post embedded in the valley below. It pulsed with violet light, a hub of alien energy wrapped in thorn scaffolding. She'd marked it 3 days ago during recon and studied its patterns. Guards rotated every 20 minutes. Power surges occurred twice per hour, and one of the relay towers had an exposed coolant line vulnerable to precision fire. She didn't fire. Not yet. Instead, she recorded their shifts, uploaded data to her private black box drone, and planted 2 motion-activated charge nodes near their perimeter sensors. The explosives wouldn't kill. They'd blind, create chaos. And when they did, they'd look outward for attackers, never inward. Alyssa rested beneath the crag, listening to the hum of the alien tower, heart still. Sleep was a luxury, so she took it in fragments, 8 minutes here, 12 there, always half alert. Dreams came like flickers of light in a cracked mirror. Mason's laugh, the mission briefing, the sound of plasma, fire behind her. She didn't try to hold on to them. By dawn, she'd already moved east, wrapping around to the enemy's northern ridge. She left no trail. If someone had followed, they'd find nothing but damp footprints that ended mid-stride, swallowed by earth and mist. As she settled into her next vantage point, a chime echoed faintly through her earpiece. Another transmission. This time, it was a voice she recognized from the videos. The same Zarnai officer who had laughed over Mason's corpse. She's out there, they say, hunting us. A human ghost. The voice chuckled. I say let her come. Let her watch how real warriors fight. Alyssa adjusted her scope and breathed in slowly. Watch closely, then, she whispered to the wind. And the forest held its breath.